have news about your daily life. How many cups of coffee do you drink a day? The prestigious Mayo Clinic has published a new study suggesting that number could affect your life.
What if I told you that the coffee sitting in your kitchen right now might be quietly working against you? For years, coffee has been sold as the morning miracle, boosting energy, sharpening focus, even protecting your health. But once you cross 60, certain coffees, yes, even from the biggest names, can carry risks that hit harder than most people realize. Take Starbucks Cold Brew, for example. Smooth, refreshing, easy on the tongue, but inside that cup hides an acidity level that can wreak havoc on an older stomach. Or think about those shiny pod machines. Nespresso, Keurig, the ones that promise perfect coffee in seconds. Convenient? Absolutely. But that convenience may come with chemicals and plastics you don't want sneaking into your system. And then there are the so-called healthy options. Bags on the shelf proudly labeled low acid, like VitaCup Perfect Low Acid ground coffee. Sound safer than they really are. Even popular decafs, from Terbodore's Unwind decaf to the generic supermarket brands, sometimes use harsh chemical processes or leave behind just enough caffeine to disturb sleep and spike heart rate. Here's the shocking part. These are the coffees most people over 60 reach for every single day, believing they're making the smart choice. But today we're pulling back the curtain and exposing 7 types of coffee and the products behind them that you should think twice about before pouring your next cup. Because once you know what's really inside, you'll never look at your morning ritual the same way again. That smooth, chilled sip might feel refreshing, but hidden in that cup is a chemical profile your body may no longer tolerate. As we age, stomach acid naturally decreases, digestion slows, and the gut lining becomes more sensitive. What does that mean? A highly acidic coffee that might not have bothered you at 40 can now trigger burning reflux, bloating, or a gnawing stomachache at 60. Take Starbucks Cold Brew, one of the most popular coffeehouse drinks in the world. It's marketed as bold yet smooth, and people love it for the mellow taste. But here's the secret. The slow steeping process doesn't reduce acidity. It often pulls out more of the compounds that irritate sensitive stomachs. Many seniors actually switch to cold brew, believing it's gentler, only to find themselves battling heartburn, indigestion, or restless sleep later in the night. And it's not just Starbucks. Boutique brands push bright or fruity light roasts, like the ones popping up in trendy cafes. They sound gourmet, but the lighter the roast, the more acidic the result. But that acidity doesn't just upset digestion, it can wear down tooth enamel, increase sensitivity, and even worsen existing bone health issues if you're already battling calcium loss. The irony? These drinks are often marketed as premium, healthier alternatives. Yet for anyone over 60, the reality can be the exact opposite: discomfort, acid reflux, and unnecessary strain on a system that needs support, not punishment. And here's the twist. You might think avoiding acidic coffees solves the problem. But what comes next shows that even so-called low-acid or safer brews can still backfire in shocking ways. If acidity wears down the stomach, caffeine wears down everything else. When you're younger, your body breaks down caffeine quickly. The average person in their 20s can drink a double espresso and still sleep like nothing happened. But after 60, the enzymes in your liver process caffeine more slowly, meaning it lingers in your bloodstream for twice as long, sometimes up to 10 hours. So, what does that mean for your morning coffee ritual? That giant iced coffee from Starbucks packed with 3 or 4 espresso shots doesn't just perk you up for the morning. It stays with you all day, raising your heart rate, tightening blood vessels, and quietly pushing your blood pressure higher than it should be. By the time evening comes, you're still wired, restless, maybe even lying in bed staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, wondering why you can't drift off. And it's not just coffeehouse drinks. Capsule machines like Nespresso make it dangerously easy to overdo it. One small pod feels harmless, but drink a few back-to-back and you're unknowingly loading your system with the equivalent of 4 or 5 cups. Then there are the so-called extreme blends like Death Wish coffee, which markets itself as the world's strongest. A single mug can deliver twice the caffeine of a normal cup. For someone over 60, that's not a boost. That's a shock to the system. The real danger lies in how sneaky caffeine can be. You might think you're safe with a medium roast or a grande latte, but serving sizes have ballooned over the years. A standard diner mug once held 6 ounces. Today, a medium at Dunkin or Starbucks is 16 ounces, almost triple the dose. What feels like 1 cup is actually 3 in disguise. And here's something most people don't realize. Even decaf isn't completely caffeine-free. Brands like Terbodore's Unwind decaf keep trace amounts. For some, that might not matter. But for someone sensitive, those leftover milligrams can build up if you drink multiple cups a day, leading to racing heartbeats and jittery nerves just the same. It's a dangerous cycle. Drink more to wake up, feel restless at night, then wake up groggy and drink even more the next day. And the cycle gets harder to escape the older you get. But caffeine isn't the only hidden risk in your cup. Because once you sweeten it with flavored syrups, or pour in that guilt-free creamer, the problem shifts from energy to sugar, and what comes next could shock you even more. If caffeine rattles your nerves, sugar quietly eats away at your health. And here's the scary part, coffee has become one of the sneakiest ways sugar creeps into our daily lives. Especially once we pass 60. What used to be a simple cup of black coffee has turned into a dessert disguised as breakfast. Take the Starbucks Pumpkin Spice Latte, celebrated, Instagrammed, and sold in the millions every fall. But behind the cinnamon swirl and creamy foam lies nearly 50 grams of sugar in a single grande cup. That's not just more sugar than a can of Coca-Cola, it's double what the American Heart Association recommends as an entire day's intake for women over 60. That sugar rush doesn't just give you a buzz, it drives inflammation, stresses your pancreas, and sets you up for an energy crash that hits harder and lasts longer with age. And it doesn't stop with seasonal drinks. A caramel frappuccino, a white chocolate mocha, even a medium-flavored iced coffee from Dunkin can dump more sugar into your bloodstream than a candy bar. For someone managing blood pressure, joint pain, or insulin resistance, the daily treat is actually a silent attack on your body. But the danger doesn't just live at the coffee house. Supermarket shelves are lined with brightly colored bottles from Coffee Mate and International Delight, each promising flavors like hazelnut, French vanilla, or caramel macchiato. Look closer and you'll see what they're really made of: corn syrup solids, hydrogenated oils, and artificial flavors. A single tablespoon can pack over 5 grams of sugar, and most people don't stop at one spoonful. Multiply that by 2 or 3 coffees a day, and you're talking about the sugar equivalent of eating 2 glazed donuts before breakfast. And here's the cruelest twist. Even the sugar-free or fat-free creamers can backfire. Many are loaded with artificial sweeteners or fillers that confuse your metabolism, leading to the same cravings and crashes as sugar itself. That means even when you think you're being careful, you may be trapped in the same cycle. The result? A roller coaster of spikes and crashes that leaves you tired, hungry, and reaching for more coffee just to keep going. What started as comfort has become sabotage. And while sugar tears down your body from the inside, the next danger hides in the very packaging of your coffee. Because sometimes it's not what you add to your cup, it's what's leaking into it. After hearing about the dangers of acidity, many people think they've found the solution. Simply switch to a bag labeled low acid. It sounds logical. Fewer acids, fewer problems, right? Not so fast. These coffees are one of the biggest traps on the shelf, and for people over 60, they can be even more misleading. Brands like VitaCup Perfect Low Acid ground coffee market themselves as a gentler choice. The packaging makes it sound like a savior for reflux and sensitive digestion. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Low acid doesn't always mean what you think it does. Coffee acidity isn't measured by taste, it's about the chemical compounds extracted during roasting. A low acid label often just means the beans were grown at lower elevations, or the roast was darkened slightly to mute the flavor of acidity. That doesn't guarantee your stomach will feel any different. And here's the catch. Darker roasting, used to create low-acid beans, can actually burn off antioxidants. Those antioxidants are one of the reasons coffee has health benefits in the first place. Protecting against inflammation, supporting brain health, even lowering risks of certain diseases. By chasing a so-called safer brew, you may actually be drinking coffee that's less protective and less nutritious. Even worse, many low-acid blends aren't tested under strict medical standards. Some companies slap the label on without clearly defining what low actually means. That means 2 bags sitting side by side on the shelf could have very different effects. One mild, the other just as harsh as regular coffee. And here's the cruel twist. People over 60 are the most likely to be drawn in by these promises. The very group most sensitive to stomach upset ends up paying more for a product that doesn't actually solve the problem, and may even strip away the benefits of a regular, well-roasted cup. The result? Seniors spend extra money, feel lulled into a false sense of security, and keep drinking a brew that may still leave them with heartburn, indigestion, and fewer of the health-boosting compounds they thought they were getting. But the deception doesn't stop there. Because if low-acid labels can mislead you, wait until you hear the truth about decaf. That supposedly safe option can hide chemicals and caffeine in ways most people never imagined. If you're finding this eye-opening so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got even more hidden coffee traps to reveal, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Decaf has been marketed for decades as the safe alternative, the choice for people who love coffee but can't handle caffeine. And on the surface, it sounds perfect. You get the ritual, the aroma, the comfort, without the sleepless nights. But for anyone over 60, the truth about decaf is far more complicated. The first trap lies in how it's made. Most mass-market decaf isn't crafted with health in mind. It's engineered for profit, Cheaper brands often rely on chemical solvents like methylene chloride or ethyl acetate to strip away the caffeine. These are the same chemicals used in paint strippers and glue removers. Now, regulators claim the residues left behind are minimal. But here's the problem. When you're younger, your body can flush out toxins more efficiently. After 60, your liver and kidneys process things slower, meaning even trace amounts can quietly accumulate. Drink chemically processed decaf every day for years, and you're exposing your system to something your body simply isn't equipped to clear. Some brands do it differently. Bean Their Ethiopia Decaf, for example, uses the CO2 process, a method that avoids harsh chemicals entirely and keeps more of the bean's natural antioxidants. Others, like Swiss Water Decaf, use pure water extraction, leaving behind no chemical residues at all. These are safer options, but here's the catch. They're usually harder to find and cost more, and most people grabbing a bag of decaf at the supermarket have no idea which process was used. The second trap is caffeine itself. Despite the name, decaf is never 100% caffeine-free. A typical cup still contains anywhere from 2 to 15 milligrams of caffeine. It sounds small, but for someone over 60, especially if you're sensitive, that's enough to keep your heart beating faster, raise blood pressure, or disrupt sleep cycles. Brands like Terbodore's Unwind Decaf are gentler, but even they carry trace caffeine. Drink 3 or 4 cups in a day, and suddenly your safe decaf adds up to the same hit as a half cup of regular coffee. And here's the third trap. Decaf isn't just about caffeine. Studies show the chemical processes used can strip away polyphenols and antioxidants, the very compounds that make coffee beneficial in the first place. In chasing safety, you may actually be drinking a cup with fewer health benefits than regular coffee. So while decaf is often seen as the responsible choice, the reality is much darker. For older drinkers, the very cup that's supposed to protect you might still be taxing your heart, draining your energy, and exposing you to chemicals you never signed up for. And if even decaf carries hidden risks, what happens when the issue isn't what kind of coffee you drink, but how much of it you pour into your system every single day? That's the next shocking truth most people don't want to face. Sometimes the biggest danger isn't in the beans or the brew, it's in the sheer amount we pour into our bodies. Coffee is powerful, and after 60, moderation is no longer optional. It's essential. The body processes everything slower, caffeine lingers in the bloodstream, hydration levels drop faster, and the heart and bones don't bounce back as easily as they used to. What once felt like an energizing habit can quietly turn into a health risk. Experts generally recommend a limit of about 400 milligrams of caffeine a day, roughly 4 small diner mugs of plain black coffee. But here's the trap. Hardly anyone is drinking coffee that small anymore. A Starbucks Grande isn't 1 cup, it's 2. A venti iced coffee, nearly 3. Add a double espresso from Nespresso or Keurig pods throughout the day, and you've blasted past your daily limit before you even realize it. What feels like a couple cups is often 6 or 7 in disguise. And the consequences aren't always obvious at first. Too much caffeine can raise blood pressure subtly week after week. It can draw calcium out of bones, weakening them over time. It dehydrates, which increases the risk of dizziness or falls. A real danger for seniors. It also amplifies bathroom trips, throwing off sleep and rest. Many seniors shrug off the racing heartbeat, the restless nights, the jittery nerves, thinking it's just age catching up. But in reality, it's their coffee habit working against them. Here's the cruel cycle. 1 large latte in the morning leads to an energy crash in the afternoon. To push through, you reach for another cup. That pick-me-up carries into the evening, wrecking your sleep. You wake up groggy, reach for even more coffee, and the spiral deepens. The very thing you're relying on for energy is the same thing draining it. And if you're on medication, the risks multiply. Coffee can reduce the absorption of drugs for thyroid conditions, osteoporosis, and even common blood pressure pills. That means your medicine isn't doing its job simply because you had 1 cup too many. Even healthier options don't escape the problem. Organic beans, fair trade roasts, or even decaf still contain compounds that, in excess, can overwork your kidneys, irritate your stomach, and strain your heart. Coffee at its core is still a stimulant. The dose makes the poison. This is the part most people don't want to face. The danger isn't just in the type of coffee, it's in how often you reach for it. And once you're over 60, that 1 more cup could be the very thing holding back your energy, your sleep, and even your long-term health. But does this mean you have to give up coffee completely? Not at all. Because when you know which 7 coffees to avoid and how to balance your intake, you can still enjoy your morning ritual without sacrificing your health. So here we are. We've peeled back the layers of the coffee industry and exposed 7 hidden dangers that most people over 60 never even think about. We started with the ultra-acidic brews, those trendy cold brews and light roasts. that feel smooth but can eat away at your stomach and teeth. Then came the caffeine overloads. The giant lattes, energy blends, and back-to-back pod refills that slowly push your heart and blood pressure into dangerous territory. From there, we dug into sugar, the caramel swirls, the pumpkin spice lattes, the so-called fat-free creamers that secretly carry more sugar than soda. And if that wasn't enough, we uncovered the chemicals hiding in convenience, the Keurig and Nespresso pods, the plastic reservoirs, the thin linings that leach toxins you can't taste but your body absorbs. But the dangers didn't stop there. We exposed the myth of low-acid coffees, showing how those labels can strip away antioxidants without delivering real relief. We lifted the veil on decaf, the chemical solvents, the hidden caffeine and the false sense of safety. And finally, we faced the hardest truth of all. Even the best beans in the world can turn against you if you simply drink too much. And here's the part nobody tells you. These risks aren't dramatic. Overnight dangers. They creep in slowly. A little more reflux here, a restless night there, a blood pressure reading just a bit higher than last time. It doesn't feel like coffee's fault until the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. But here's the good news. Knowledge is power. You don't have to give up your morning ritual. You don't have to abandon the comfort of a warm cup. You just have to choose smarter. That means clean, chemical-free roasts, natural decaf processed with water or CO2. 1 or 2 cups, not 6. Skipping the sugar bombs and flavored creamers in favor of real milk or just black. And saying no to cheap pods and plastics that don't belong in your system. Because after 60, the difference between thriving and struggling often comes down to the small daily choices. Your morning coffee isn't just a habit. It's a decision about your health, your energy, and even your future. If this video made you rethink what's in your cup, hit that subscribe button right now. I've got even more hidden food traps, corporate secrets, and everyday deceptions to uncover, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. And do me a favor, share this with someone you care about, because the truth is, the coffee they drink tomorrow morning could shape the way they feel for the rest of their life.